Well, it's that time of year again, the Video Game Awards. And you're probably expecting me to say something like, oh, it was horrible, it was worse than ever, it was filled with political propaganda, yada yada yada. Actually, not quite. Sure, it still had quite a few bad moments, but honestly, it was just mostly boring, which really is no surprise. And too many of the trailers were just straight up CG trailers, but honestly, complaining about that at this point is just redundant. I think you already know how I feel about CG trailers. The only way to sell me on a video game is to show me uncut gameplay, but that clearly doesn't work to sell your game to the masses, so it's really no surprise that all of these are highly edited vertical slice gameplay sections, or just straight up animated or CGI only with no gameplay whatsoever. So I'm not going to bother complaining about that any further. On the bright side of things, there were quite a few memorable moments, and probably the best part of the Game Awards has absolutely nothing to do with the Game Awards. Don't worry, we'll talk about that. And just like last year, I'm going to bring back the woke counter, and just straight up combine it with the female protagonist counter. I already know some of you think that there's no problem with having a female protagonist in a game, and on paper I absolutely agree with you, but I'm sorry, I'm way too black-pilled to think that the vast majority of games developed nowadays that have a female protagonist were made purely out of someone's creative vision and have absolutely nothing to do with politics. So we'll just have one combined woke counter for the whole thing, and I will leave out any female protagonists I feel do not count as woke. Feel free to complain about it, I guess, in the comments. So without further ado, let's get into the Video Game Awards 2022. The first 30 minutes of the show was essentially a compilation of different trailers along with the minor award categories. So much was shown here that I'll try to condense it to just the most significant trailers. At the very start, they show off a new Dead Cells DLC that crosses over with Castlevania. I still haven't played Dead Cells to this day, but I do own it, so this might finally get me to play the game. It certainly looks interesting, I'll give it that, but there was no new gameplay shown, just an animated trailer. A bit later, they revealed Hellboy Web of Wired, featuring a cel-shaded art style. Unfortunately, basically no gameplay was shown, so no telling if it'll be any good or not. Then there was a Horizon VR game that was revealed. Personally, I despised Horizon Forbidden West for reasons you could probably guess, but I don't know, maybe VR will make it more interesting. Then there was a horror game called Post Trauma, featuring a fat guy protagonist of all things. That alone caught my attention. Then there was some kind of bizarre puzzle game where you use photos to affect the environment and you can walk through some of them. That could be pretty interesting. I'm not a huge puzzle game guy, but it did look like something I've never seen before. And then we got yet another trailer of Atomic Hearts. I swear this game looks better every time I see it. It's one of the very few games I'm actually remotely excited for in the near future. Emphasis on near, as it comes out February 21st of next year, so I will definitely review it when it comes out. And then the very next trailer, we get some game called Scars Above that is featuring a woman trapped on some alien planet. And I guess you gotta survive by crafting various weapons and do research or something. I don't know, it's vertical slice gameplay. It's kind of hard to get a good idea of what the game really plays like. And the game comes out February 28th, so that's really not a good sign. And call me a conspiracy theorist all you like, but I honestly think the female protagonist is supposed to be the selling point of this, because the rest of it looks just kinda generic. It doesn't help that the very next trailer is obviously oozing with wokeness. Just look at this globo-homo art style, dude. I don't care if it technically is Cal Arts or not, but it's definitely highly reminiscent. And we have our good old brown and green protagonist. I believe Slime Rancher used the exact same palette. That I guess is supposed to be simultaneously inoffensive and to represent minority groups or something, I'm assuming is what they would say. In any case, it just looks kinda ugly to me. Then after a reveal for a new game mode for Among Us, oh boy, I'm so excited. How very sus of them. We get yet another game with a female protagonist, and it seems like just from what little we see here that it has an environmental message, especially judging by the title After Us. Then we got an actually interesting looking pixel art game called Replaced about some kind of dystopian future. Now, depending on what the core message of this game is, it could be Uber-based, but I'm not going to get my hopes up for that one. Still, definitely looked pretty interesting. And then for the final trailer of the pre-show, we had Street Fighter 6, and look, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fighting game fan, so I'm not personally invested in this, but oh my god, these fucking character designs have gone to shit. And even worse, we have a new woman to challenge Abby Armstrong's throne. I don't even know if this qualifies as woke or not, because I kind of enjoy it in a weird, ironic way that they just have this roided out fucking monster as a female character. At least it's pretty believable that she could beat the shit out of me. I'm not going to contest that for a second. But what the fuck, Capcom? Really? Out of the minor award categories, I didn't really care about most of these. Honestly, there's just too many categories in general. Is there any reason that we had to have Best Esports Player, Best Esports Team, Best Esports Coach? And again, even though I don't really care about fighting games that much, you would think that they'd be at least important enough to get a proper segment during the show and someone to pick up an award on stage, and yet all they get is a footnote during the Game Awards. And then as the show finally begins, we get our first major cringe moment as Al Pacino's corpse is rolled out onto the stage. Seriously though, how many times has this dude sold out? Do I need to remind you of Dunkachino?
Everyone wants my Dunkachino. Can't get enough of my Dunkachino.
I don't know, it's just kind of sad to see Scarface do the fucking Game Awards when obviously we all know he doesn't play video games. He even says it during his rambly, incoherent speech. He even admits he can't read the teleprompter.
It may come as a shock to you, but it's hard for me to see the teleprompter.
I mean, what a disaster, dude. Eventually, we finally get to the nominees for Best Performance, and God, what an awful selection. I know I'm gonna sound like a broken, misogynistic record at this point, but 3 out of 5 of the nominees were female, and one of them was Atreus, and I swear Atreus' voice acting sounds even more wooden in Ragnarok than in the original when he was a literal child. I'm serious, dude, the voice acting was not that good, so obviously there's a clear winner here, being Christopher Judge, and then he comes up on stage and fucking tells his life story for like 10 straight minutes, dude. I couldn't believe this shit when I saw it. What? Security! Security, please! A black man is taking over the stage. That said, at the very least, it was wholesome and didn't come across as egotistical or anything like that. It was just kind of weird, which honestly just fits the Video Game Awards perfectly. There's so many fucking weird moments that happen during this and E3. There's something about gaming in general that is just so cringe. And I love that cringe, honestly. I hate that people take video games so fucking seriously these days. Just look at the backlash against my videos for a good example. Christopher Judge's speech goes on so long, they start playing him off the stage, right? Which, you know, literally everyone knows if you start playing music, that means you've gone on too long, it's time to leave. And he still goes on for like another minute, dude. It's fucking insane. The next trailer features the reveal of Hades 2. Yes, surprisingly, Supermassive is making a sequel instead of a completely new IP, and what better one to choose than Hades, which is arguably their best game. It was my 2020 Game of the Year, so I'm certainly interested in this. Yes, there is a female protagonist now, and yes, they are probably a bit left-leaning, but fuck it, I'll let it slide. They made a quality game, and that is definitely more important than the political leanings of the creators. Unfortunately, the next major reveal is Ken Levine's next game, the creator of BioShock, Judas. And once again, we have a female protagonist. I'm not sure if she's a cyborg or an android, so I guess if it's an android, it's technically not a female, but I guess she would probably identify as female. I don't fucking care. And already it is somewhat overtly political, which shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. His games have always been political, and BioShock Infinite was absolutely insufferable with its frankly quite juvenile and simplistic portrayal of certain serious political issues. Then there was a reveal for a Bayonetta prequel, which kind of looked bizarre and not really fitting. I'm not sure who they made that for, but whatever, maybe it'll be good. And right before another ad spot, Jeff Keighley makes a direct dig at Christopher Judge.
On Steam, Valve is giving away a Steam Deck every minute to a viewer of the show. So I was going to start talking slowly, but I probably should start talking a little quicker after Chris' speech, but I'm so glad that he won that award.
Then some actress named Jessica Hennick, who I've never heard of before this, comes up on stage and we have another golden cringe moment.
But someone in this room is a murderer.
Reggie. At least Reggie's there.
Just kidding, we're just joking around. But also, statistically speaking, someone in this theater probably is a murderer. I'm sorry.
And Ryan Johnson and Daniel Craig show up to shield their movie and introduce the nominations for Best Indie Game. And the only one of these I've actually played is Stray. I refuse to play Vampire Survivors out of principle, but Neon White looked interesting. I'll try to play that in the next couple weeks. And of course, Stray 1, the fucking cat walking simulator. I understand a lot of people like this game, and I have a bit of a bias against cats. I'm definitely a dog guy, but I wasn't really invested in any of the games shown here, so it's not really a big deal. The next set of reveals include yet another expansion for Destiny 2, I can't believe that game is still going, an extended cutscene trailer for the Suicide Squad game, which I can't really comment much on. I hope it's good, but they didn't show any gameplay, so I have no idea if the game's gonna be good or not. That said, it is sad that it ended up being Kevin Conroy's final role as Batman. He will pretty much forever be the voice of Batman in my head, as he voiced Batman in pretty much every single piece of media from my childhood that wasn't live action. So yeah, it fucking sucks. Before we get to the next award, we are shown the Game Awards version of Masterclass. Yes, really, they have their own fucking off-brand version called Future Class, where we see one of the developers on Among Us, of all things, who apparently is also a street dancer, as if that matters, doing weird poses for fucking TikToks. I don't know what the hell this has to do with anything. I'm starting to wonder if I should have made a fucking cringe counter for this year instead of a woke counter, honestly. Then we finally get to the next award, which is Best Adaptation. I'm not sure if they've ever featured this category before, I can't remember, but if not, this is probably the best new addition. I actually have not seen either Sonic movie yet. Yes, I know. I have to get around to watching it. I just don't like watching films by myself. And I also didn't see the Cuphead show, because why the hell would I? Arcane won, which I guess I'm okay with. I wasn't a huge fan of the show, but it was really well animated. Some of the characters were pretty interesting. And I'm still going to add this to the woke counter, because Arcane did have lesbians in it. But at the very least, the Uncharted movie didn't win. That thing fucking sucked. The next major reveal was for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I never played Fallen Order, but I guess I have to now. This was actually a pretty solid gameplay reveal. There was some uninterrupted gameplay in there. I wouldn't say I'm excited necessarily, because I'm not really a fan of Star Wars. But people liked the first one, so this one could be good as well. Then we got a few more somewhat interesting reveals. First, the Celeste developers' next game, then the Dune MMO, then a new trailer and demo for Forspoken, which I absolutely am thrilled to play. I especially love how this fantasy world is ruled by queens! Not just one queen, but all the queens. All women are queens. Then finally, we get to the next big game reveal, Death Stranding 2. And I vehemently refused to ever play the first game unless I had a good reason, and now unfortunately I have a good reason. I just get the feeling I'm not gonna like it, but I'll try to keep an open mind. And of course, as you might expect, afterward, Jeff Keighley and Kojima sort of have a slightly awkward back and forth, not nearly as bad as previous years. And Jeff basically gets Kojima to admit that he rewrote the story after the pandemic.
How has the pandemic and what we've been through, how has that impacted your storytelling and the theme of this game?
実はということになります。今回、はい。
Well, I had the story written before the pandemic, but after experiencing the pandemic, I just rewrote the whole thing, the story from scratch.
Which means the story's probably gonna be an allegory for COVID. I expect that to be very cringe. Then the next category is Best Narrative, and these nominees fucking suck, dude. Look, I think Elden Ring's a good game despite all the complaints I had about it, but lore and narrative are not the same fucking thing, okay? I'm sure you could play a semantics game to argue that it's still earned a place, but are you kidding me, dude? Come on. I think part of the problem is we've been getting so many shitty stories this year that even though I complained about God of War's narrative for over half of my review, against these other nominees, I guess it's the fucking clear winner, because I don't even know what that immortality shit is. And Horizon Forbidden West actually got visible disgust out of me multiple times as I was playing it, so I'll let God of War win this round just because they didn't fucking nominate any good story games. Not that I could tell you one that came out this year, but at the very least my stream reaction was pretty funny. I was drunk off my ass, if you couldn't tell.
God of War Ragnarok.
No, fuck you, no, my review's right, you're wrong, I'm right. Fuck you, Game Awards, you motherfuckers! Eat my ass! And look, I'm not gonna dwell on this too much, but just look at this guy who's speaking for God of War's narrative. Does this not tell you everything about the type of people who like the new God of War games? This guy is the narrative director for God of War Ragnarok. I think that speaks for itself. After a quick gameplay trailer for Tekken 8, we then get a few more minor categories like Best Art Direction, which honestly probably should be a major category, but at least Elden Ring won that one. And another one was Best Discord Support Community. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? Really? Next up, we get another gameplay showcase for Nightingale, a game that was revealed last year at the Game Awards. For those who don't remember, it is yet another open-world survival crafting game. And while you can certainly create your own character, for some reason, for the sake of this trailer, they decided to feature a black female character. Again, you can create your own character, so this is not a knock against the game itself, but a knock against the people who created this trailer, who obviously are trying to push forward a certain message, a certain thing to normalize in the gaming community. That was pretty obvious last year. I think there was something like 4 or 5 games with black female protagonists. And it's funny that I mention this because immediately after this is the Games for Impact Award, quite literally the woke award category. And honestly, I'm not joking here, I have never heard of any of these games that were nominated, and of course, the game with the mixed race couple wins. I feel like I need to be clear here. I have no problems with mixed race couples in real life. This is clearly just to spread the message, which I'm sure you've all heard that phrase many times by now. For what purpose is this being shoved down our throats? Well, I can't talk about that on YouTube. I'll let you come to your own conclusions. The point is, it is too hard not to notice. It is way too obvious, whether it's ads on TV or in video games, TV shows, movies, they're everywhere now. Speaking of propaganda, and no joke, this was immediately after the Games for Impact Award, we were shown more gameplay footage of Baldur's Gate 3. Now, I have to state once again, you can create your own character, and a long time ago when the early access came out, the vast majority of gamers created a generic straight white male, which pissed off Larian Studios. No, that's real, you can look that shit up. And so for this trailer, once again, we have a black female created character. And there's also a lesbian kiss near the end. None of this surprises me. D&D has been paused since probably as far back as when 5th edition came out, so yeah, I guess this is appropriate at the very least. Next up, we get to see Joe Mad's new game, the artist for the Darksiders games, which I'm a fan of personally, called Wayfinder. And once again, it's vertical slice gameplay, so it's hard to tell if the action RPG combat will actually be good, but I am a fan of his art style, so hopefully it is. Then Jeff Keighley brings on some Norwegian singer called Aurora to talk about some kind of virtual concert experience. And her behavior was somewhere between cute and cringe. I can't really decide which. She was either incredibly nervous, autistic, or on drugs. I'll let you decide. But what I can say is this virtual concert experience is 2 years too late, or maybe a horrible sign of things to come, if you know what I mean. Then after yet another ad break, there's been like 10 of these by the way, and we're only 2 hours in, we are shown another one of the Video Game Awards discount masterclass, teachers, professors, whatever. A black female streamer from Brazil who is also LGBT by the way, and honestly it's best if I don't say anything else about this. I'm already in deep enough shit, if you know, you know. The next premiere is a CG trailer for Diablo 4, and there's a Black Priestess who's the central character shown. Are you noticing any patterns yet? Next up were a few more minor award categories. The only thing I took away from this is God of War Ragnarok won another award, somehow Splatoon 3 got Multiplayer Game of the Year, and Ludwig, of all people, was given Content Creator of the Year. Anyway, then we're shown Horizon Forbidden West's expansion, and the crowd pretends to care. Finally, it's time for another major award category. The cast for both The Last of Us game and the live-action TV show coming out next year come out on stage to present Best Action Game. Now, I think I actually already complained about this last year, but action game makes no fucking sense as a category. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was going up against Bayonetta 3. Those are not in any universe the same genre. They don't play similarly in any conceivable way, and yet they're fighting for the same award. Bayonetta 3 wins, which I guess is fine by me. I still haven't played it myself. But I can't help but feel like these nominees were selected specifically so God of War or Elden Ring couldn't win another category. Then we get another trio of world premieres, the first being Blue Protocol, which is an anime game being worked on by Bandai Namco and the Amazon Game Studio, which is kind of weird. Then there's the Remnant from the Ashes sequel. I'll admit I never played the first, but heard a lot of good things about it. And finally, a Transformers game that doesn't really look anything like Transformers, but I guess that's interesting. Then Keegan-Michael Key comes on stage to show off another clip from the Mario movie. He makes a very bad joke about mushroom caps and hats.
I see a lot of people online saying that it's a hat, and you know what? It's not a hat, it's a cap. You see, because the cap is that top part of the mushroom that houses the spores and everything. And also, a cap is another word for hat.
And the trailer itself looks pretty good, I guess. Unfortunately, I've already seen a previous trailer where Peach has a fucking halberd and is a badass now. And Luigi is apparently the damsel in distress now, or at least it looks that way, so that does kind of take away from this trailer a bit. I'm still hoping it's going to be at least good. Maybe not amazing, great, or any of that, but decent would be perfectly fine for a video game movie. Then we get a dose of major cringe as Animal from the Muppets comes on stage and tells some really cheesy jokes.
I have to ask, what do you want to play? Do you have a certain game, or?
Tarnished!
Elden Ring? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah.
I didn't imagine you being a Soulsborne player.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite boss in Elden Ring?
Please. No one thinks that. Nope. And we are given the nominees for Best Score, and my fucking god, dude, God of War Ragnarok wins. Can anyone even tell me one memorable track from that game other than the main theme? No, you fucking can't. No one even notices there's music like 95% of the time. Say what you will about the original God of War games tracks abusing leitmotif, but the new games have like no fucking music. It was running up against Metal Hellsinger, which is a literal rhythm shooter game all about metal music, and Xenoblade 3, which I've heard some really awesome tracks from. Even Elden Ring has a better OST than God of War Ragnarok. This is a fucking joke. The next world premiere is for an action RPG made by the Life is Strange developers, and I don't even think I need to point out what's going on at the beginning of this trailer. She is a ghost, I guess, at the very least, and we get to see half a second of gameplay. Definitely a good sign. Then we're shown a brief gameplay trailer for Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, and before anyone gets excited, let me just remind you who the lead writer for this game is. Ashley Cooper, a trans woman, is writing for the undeniably male power fantasy game. I really hope it's good, guys, but I'm just saying that's a red flag. And since there's still 40 minutes left of the show, I'm gonna try and condense this to just the most important moments. Eventually, the old Crash Bandicoot mascot costume crashes the stage, and we're shown Crash Team Rumble, which at first I thought was Crash Bash. And honestly, I'm still convinced it's basically just a reimagining of Crash Bash, as it's a Crash Bandicoot party game. What the hell is going on at Toys for Bob, and what happened to Vicarious Visions? And why have we not gotten Spyro 4, goddammit? I know I'm like the only guy who still cares about Spyro at this point, but please, please give me Spyro 4, I'm begging you. Then for our next major award, we have the other woke category, Innovations in Accessibility. Look, I don't have a single problem with disabled people playing video games. I think it's cool that a lot of these settings exist so people with color blindness or people who are deaf, etc., can play video games, but there's literally no reason that this had to be one of the big award categories when entire game genres get like a 5-second mention and then you move on to the next thing. And of course, God of War Ragnarok wins this category too. And then the person going up there to accept the award is this person. And look at this creature.
Thank you, everyone.
That's a creature. Then we get a couple more premieres, one for the Lords of the Fallen sequel, which, may I remind you, the first game was like the worst Souls-like game at the time it came out. And the other premiere is for Crime Boss Rock-A City. And we get another cringe moment.
It's a little different than the rest of these trailers you're seeing tonight. This one's a little bit dangerous. So the boss wanted to come out here. You know, make sure you don't hurt yourself sometime during the next 60 seconds.
Wow. What a crowd.
And look, I've said this before, but getting real-life actors to motion capture for your game and fucking Vanilla Ice, of all people, is not a good sign. There's no telling whether or not this will be a primarily story-based game with some small gameplay segments or some legit GTA clone of some kind. There's not enough to dissect here based on this trailer. But at least maybe people can revive some decade-old Chuck Norris jokes from this. Then we get the last set of minor award categories. And again, I know I already just ranted about this, but it pisses me off that none of these actually get a real segment on the show. Like best role-playing game. RPG is one of the biggest fucking genres in video games, but it's not important enough for the Game Awards, I guess. No, games for impact and fucking accessibility are more important than role-playing game, and Elden Ring won, which, yeah, I'm totally fine with that, obviously. And then we have Player's Voice, which, if you don't know, there was a huge botting scam, essentially, around the vote this time, with basically Team Autist voting for Sonic, and Team China voting for Genshin Impact. My question is, why the hell is Genshin Impact even on this list? It came out 2 years ago. Oh, I know why, because they needed a Chinese game to be represented for the Game Awards. Oh, big surprise. And Jeff Keighley claims that all the bot votes were removed, and yet somehow Genshin Impact still won. Even if it wasn't actual bots, and just millions of Chinese players who for some reason care about an American award show. This is still bullshit. Genshin Impact shouldn't even be on here. Eventually, Reggie Fils-Aimé comes on stage, and yeah, I mean, everyone loves this guy for good reason, to present Best Game Direction, which last year I complained about quite a bit as Deathloop won despite having pretty bad game direction by my standards. And thankfully, Elden Ring actually beat God of War Ragnarok here. Honestly, I don't even know if I agree with that necessarily, because my biggest problem with Elden Ring was the change in direction to making a huge open world game, but it definitely is the better game anyway, so you could probably stretch that to mean the game direction is better as well. The next trailer is for the new Cyberpunk expansion, Phantom Liberty, and Idris Elba's in it. I'm sure that will fix my numerous problems with the gameplay and story. Cyberpunk will totally be a masterpiece now because they got Idris Elba. Whatever, in any case, you know I'm going to review this when it comes out. So I guess in my case, it doesn't even matter what the level of quality is. I basically have to talk about it. Then for arguably the biggest reveal of the show, the new Armored Core game is confirmed finally after being leaked a long time ago. I have never played any of these games. I plan to play at least one of the PS2 games soon, but consider me somewhat excited. I trust From Software now knows how to make a quality game regardless of the genre. I might not agree with all of their creative choices, but I would love to see a high-budget mech game because I really have not played any, so I'm hoping for the best. And for the final world premiere trailer of the show, we get to see some gameplay for Final Fantasy XVI, and man, it looks edgy. Now, I'm something of an edgelord myself, so consider my curiosity piqued. I have no idea if it'll actually be good or not. I heard a lot of mediocre things about Final Fantasy 15, and so I had no reason to really check it out for myself. So hopefully this one's better, I guess. If I had to complain about something, there's just way too many fucking visual effects after these attacks, dude. Stop cluttering the screen with everything. Just because you can, doesn't mean you should. And so, after 3 hours of show, we finally get to the Game of the Year nominees. Joseph Ferris comes out and, unfortunately, doesn't say anything meme-worthy this year. And this nominee selection is about as weak as you'd expect for a current year in gaming. Now, I admit I never got around to playing Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and I haven't yet played Plague Tale Requiem, but I'm going to try to in the next couple weeks. But Horizon Forbidden West does not deserve to be anywhere near any Game of the Year selection. It is not that good, dude, trust me. And so, to everyone's shock, Elden Ring actually won Game of the Year. So gamers won against the fucking shitty Sony movie games. Honestly, I wish I could say that I was hyped, excited for this, but really I was just more relieved than anything. And now this is where the show gets interesting. If you watched it, you know what happens next. At some point, a 15-year-old boy snuck in behind Miyazaki and his crew, patiently waited for their speech to be finished, and then said this.
Real quick, I want to thank everybody and say that I think I want to nominate this award to my Reformed Orthodox Rabbi Bill Clinton. Thank you, everybody.
Now, for those of you who think this is some kind of alt-right troll, or he had some kind of bizarre political message, this kid is actually Jewish.
Right, so, a lot of people, have taken the wrong message and called me, anti-Semitic, or that I'm some type of alt-right person, but that's actually not true. I'm actually Jewish myself.
And from what I can tell, he just did this as a massive troll. So good on him, that made the show way more entertaining. I was fucking blown away by this. Definitely more memorable than anything that actually happened as a part of the show. So as for this year's Game Awards, in conclusion, I'd say it was okay. It was actually pretty above average for the Game Awards. Mostly because there were a lot of world premiere trailers here. Even though most of them didn't show that much gameplay, at least a lot of the games looked somewhat interesting. There's no telling if they'll be good or bad, and if you know anything about me or this channel, I would guess 80% of them are going to be average or below. But for once, it felt like the Game Awards actually understood what we wanted to see. It was almost like a secondary E3, and the fact that we didn't even get E3 this year made this feel like almost a consolation prize of sorts. Pretty much everybody who watched this show probably saw something that they would be interested in. Now, as for the actual award show, yeah, they fucking sucked. There were plenty of cringe moments, there were multiple woke moments that were obnoxious. God of War Ragnarok won way too many awards, but at the very least, Elden Ring won Game of the Year, so it's not like it was terrible. Now, normally I would end the video here, but as you may have heard, there was some recent controversy involving me. Apparently, for whatever reason, a podcast called EFAB that I know many of you have heard of decided to make a video on my God of War Ragnarok review, which honestly, I don't really have a problem with. As I've said many times in previous videos, I don't script my reviews. They aren't particularly well edited either, and that's very much on purpose. So I'm sure they could pick it to pieces if they really wanted to. Probably wouldn't be hard for even me to do that to my own videos. And so I popped into the stream for about 10 minutes, and what did I discover? That Mauler had watched up to 20 hours of my God of War Ragnarok streams and edited together a hit piece on me. You know, instead of actually spending that time making videos for his channel. I wish I was joking, but seriously, they didn't just watch my review and the response video. No, he edited together a bunch of clips, put some of my points out of order, and showed many parts that had nothing to do with any of my points, but simply just to mock me in some way, and I was painted as some sort of neo-Nazi or racist or something. And he did all of this just because I disagreed with him about the quality of a video game. So the question is, am I going to respond? Fuck no, I'm not wasting 11 hours of my life watching that shit. I don't give a shit what they called me. The fact that they couldn't just do a normal EFAP episode on my videos really says a lot about them, so I'm not going to give them the attention they so desperately crave, and I suggest you do the same. This is the last I will ever mention this in a video. See you next time, guys.